Welcome to Movie Oubliette, the film review podcast for movies that most people have mercifully forgotten.
I'm Dan.
And I'm Conrad, and in each episode, we drag a forsaken film out of the oubliette,
Discuss it and judge it to decide whether it should be set free
or whether it should be thrown back and consigned to oblivion forever. We review the films others tend to forget. Come with us and open up the movie oubliette.
Happy New Year, listeners. This is Movie Oubliette, the continental corralling movie review podcast with me, Dan, starting the new year with January down here in Melbourne, Australia.
And me, Conrad, giving up on the idea of getting my dog off my bed in Cambridge, UK.
In this podcast, we chew over the finer things in life, obscure genre films, horror, fantasy, and sci-fi. Because Ron Perlman, being a lovable, vicious psychopath, just makes us smile. Hello, Conrad. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Dan. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. We enjoying myself doing January, or attempting to do January this year, which is... a thing in January where you post a live jam every day for January. So far I've done 5 and it's the 15th, so not doing so well.
Yes. But, well, you're doing better than I could. I couldn't come up with one jam.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's generally a synth sort of based challenge. So mainly people doing synth jams with many things. I've never really done live jams with my synths before, so it's a new experience.
Oh, you're pretty good at it. I mean, you've got all the devices with the buttons that light up and everything. It looks great.
Yeah. Looks great, but, trying to...
Well, I mean, it sounds good too. Sorry, that sounded like backhanded compliment.
If I put it on mute, it looks great.
It looks fantastic. Less said about the jams, the better. I'm sorry, that is not what I meant at all.
Well, it's fun either way, no matter how terrible it sounds. So how's Amber doing? How's your dog?
Well, Amber, I notice you're doing your jams on your bed. Amber is now sneaking up onto my bed.
Ooh.
It started, we had the really bad cold snap here in the UK where it was -7 for a few days. Yeah, it was pretty bad. And I woke up a couple of mornings and Amber was curled up, just this little brown ball with no feet or eyes or ears, just this brown furry ball just tucked in against my legs. And I thought, well, I can't be mean to her. She was cold.
Aww.
It was a survival thing. She wasn't going to make it through the night.
Aww.
But now it just seems like she thought, well, I got away with that, so I'm just going to do it every night now.
Yeah, that's how it happens. Yeah, once you let the first time slip, it's downhill battle, really.
There's no going back. Yeah. I'm sure she'll abandon me in the summer, but at the moment I'm waking up with a big pair of brown eyes staring at me, which is really cute.
All right. Well, anything in the mailbag today, Conrad?
We did, yes. It's all about Santa Claus the movie, which of course will feel very anachronistic now. But we also have a new patron to celebrate. Taipan, welcome aboard.
Welcome.
Thanks for supporting the show. On Santa Claus the movie, we heard from Jimmy Salt, who was talking about the elves having shared sleeping accommodations where at least 3 of them were sharing a bed in shifts and just like turning the nameplate. And his comment was, imagine that bunkhouse under a black light. I'll see myself out. Happy Christmas.
Oh, God. Yeah, I mean, all male.
It's just all kinds of wrong.
Yeah.
We also heard from Coppertop Dan, who said, I love this movie and Mancini's score is just timelessly glorious.
Yes, it was.
The music was probably one of the best parts, I thought. Trevor Timmis replied to Coppertop Dan and said, maybe, but the oubliette Christmas intro was a holly jolly festive delight and made this little elf very happy.
I'm glad you liked it. Yeah, it always gives me a smile, once a year when we bring it out.
It's ridiculous. I forget what it is until I hear the finished produced episode when you deliver it to me for posting. And I go, oh yeah, it's me pretending to be Michael Bublé.
Yeah.
And failing.
No,
but there we
succeeding.
Go. And we also heard from Carrie K. Haim Binas, or Binus, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, who played Cornelia in Santa Claus the movie. Yes, she commented on our socials. She said, the 80s had really odd ideas about orphans, didn't they? Anyone else think that Cornelia's nanny is screwed, the employer's gone, kid gone, ...
Yeah. Yep.
She is absolutely right.
Yeah.
And it was lovely to hear from her.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah. And finally, we had a comment from Serge of Cold Crash Pictures.
Of course. Hello, Serge.
Happy New Year, Serge. And he said, movies that appeal to Christmas nostalgia have never really done it for me, but I truly believe that Santa Claus the movie is a film about nothing for no one. I'd say I didn't like it, except that would mean it made me feel something.
Oh, okay. Bit of a Grinch there, Serge.
Yeah, I'm sure he has a favourite holiday festive treat to watch, but Santa Claus the movie is not going to be it.
Not that one.
No, but yes, thanks for writing to us. We always love hearing from you.
Yes, we do. Before we get into the film today, I believe we have someone to introduce.
We do indeed. Yes, we are thrilled to say that we are joined today by a filmmaker, video essayist, freelance media specialist, and our own social media impresario. It is Isaac Sutton. Hello, sir.
Hello.
Hey. Welcome back.
Oh my gosh, that was so flattering. I feel like the pretty spelled the ball.
Oh.
Fantastic. I'm so happy to be here, y'all.
It's great to see you again. So since we last had you on the show, I believe you've moved cities.
I have. I have transplanted from a little town called Mokina, Illinois, and now I am in San Antonio, Texas. So officially back in my home state, eating Whataburger and Tex-Mex and living the life. It's great.
So any good movies you've seen recently or things we should be looking out for?
I've been watching a lot of Japanese movies. I've been watching Lone Wolf and Cub, which is, what The Mandalorian ripped off. There's a little baby in a stroller, and you can take off parts of the stroller and they're knives, and it's kind of like a kung fu Mandalorian style save the baby.
I've always wanted to watch that movie. It's a movie, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a series. There's 7 of them.
It's a series.
It's a series. It's really pulpy and fun. I've been watching those through, and they're pretty good. I watched the new Avatar, which is batshit. If you haven't watched the new Avatar movie.
In a good way, or
I don't know, Dan. That's the thing. That's the thing. It's there's this moment where the evil army guy from the last film comes back as a young Avatar person, and he comes across his own dead body, and he picks up his own dead human skull and crushes it to dust in his hands.
What?
That happens. That happens in Avatar 2, Way of the Water.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so James Cameron pulls no punches. We'll just say that.
So are you going to do a Best Media of 2022 video? Is that likely to come?
Correct. So I have written it.
Yay.
And I will be making a Best of 2022 video of all the movies and just general media that I have found especially great over the past year. But, I'm in the filming process, so I'm hoping that'll be out by the 31st, but we'll see what life makes that happen.
Yeah.
If you want to see something else from me, if you're a video game dork like I am, I really love Super Smash Brothers. There's this game, Super Smash Brothers Melee.
Yeah.
I watch people play that game competitively for money and pride. And I did a 30-minute long video essay on people who play as Captain Falcon. In that game. So if you're interested, look up Melee Mythos on YouTube. It's like the main video. Yeah, so that's some content you can tide you over while I'm working on this top 10 list.
Oh, yeah, great.
I'm fascinated. Will it make sense to the uninitiated like myself?
I hope so. I did my darndest. So, if it doesn't, it's a failure on my part. I did my best so that my mom could watch it and she would just be into it, so...
Okay. Well, I see you have the requisite safety equipment on, so I guess you can head on over to the Oubliette, Isaac, and find which movie we'll be doing this time.
Yeah, I gotta say, the garb is fitting. I appreciate the way it shapes my body. I don't know where I'm going with that. You gotta cut that part.
That's taken.
All right, here I go. I'm opening it up. What? It's not as cavernous as I expected. It seems like I'm just kind of in a antique store full of weird religious artifacts.
Oh, right. A lot of clocks.
Yeah. Oh, I think I found the movie. It's just covered in roaches.
Oh.
Let me bust out my movie Oubliette patented can of Raid.
Blast them.
Get blasted, you roaches. What am I doing here, man?
Did you get the movie?
I got the movie. All right, I'm heading back out.
All right.
Fuck! Not my nose again!
Well, that was a close one.
That was harrowing.
So what do you have for us, Isaac?
So what I have for you today is Cronos, 1993 film from Guillermo del Toro.
Wow.
I've seen this movie before. Here's a synopsis. In the mid-1500s, an alchemist, using a strange array of golden machinery and insects, creates a device that can grant the wielder eternal life for as long as they drink human blood. It's the typical, alchemist bullcrap. The device is lost in the 1930s when the building serendipitously collapses and a piece of shrapnel pierces the alchemist straight through the heart. It remains lost until 1996, when by chance, a mysterious statue shows up on the doorstep of an elderly antique dealer named Jesus Gris. Now in the sights of a sinister businessman named Dieter de la Guardia and his nose-job-obsessed nephew, Angel, Jesus and his granddaughter must stop the device from falling into his creepily, vaguely sick hands, keeping everything a secret from Jesus' tango-dancing wife, and fend off the need to eat a bunch of expired raw meat in the fridge.
Oh.
Who will come out on top? Find out in Cronos.
Ooh. Can't wait.
Yes. After the break.
After the break. And we're back to talk about Guillermo del Toro's first movie, Cronos. Isaac, you've chosen this film for us. You've seen it before, you say. When did you first see it, and what impact did it have on you?
Sure. So, I love Cronos. I want to get that out the way at the top, right? I love Cronos.
All right, that's the episode. Thanks for listening.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody. Yeah. Roll credits.
When I was in college, right, I decided I was going to grow a beard. And when I did this, right, my beard was kind of scraggly. I didn't know how to maintain it, right? And everybody told me I started looking like Guillermo del Toro.
Oh.
I had never watched a Guillermo del Toro movie. People would just constantly compare me to this guy. And I was like, I got to figure out who the heck this man is, right? Mm-hmm. So I watched Hellboy and I loved it.
Yeah.
And I've started getting more and more into his films. Well, maybe, I think when the pandemic started, maybe it was 2021, I don't know, all those years blur together. I decided I was gonna dive into his deeper catalog, and I watched this movie Cronos for the first time, and it was just like a revelation to me, right? I had listened to interviews for a long time with Del Toro talking about all of his movies and all of his influences, and he would always bring up Cronos as like this major kind of like touchstone in his career, and so I was intrigued. And when you watch it, it feels like this blueprint that like every other Guillermo del Toro movie comes out of. You know?
Yeah.
It really feels like a kind of movie that is super inspirational to me. This is Guillermo del Toro's first movie, right? It's made in like the early 90s in Mexico, right? Which means very little resources, very little experience. And when you think about the kinds of movies that were coming out in the early 90s from like auteur directors like this, none of them are as good as Cronos to me, right? Like, a lot of them are very much based in reality, feel their budget, feel like indie films, right? But Cronos has like all of these intense special effects, you know? It has a lot of thematic layering. It has a lot of a very clear visual identity, right? It's like so obvious. The way he's using colors, the way he's using shapes and images and stuff like that. And I just think it's like probably one of the best debut films of like all time. Like, I think it's an exceptional debut.
Yeah. So, Conrad, had you seen this movie before?
I saw it before. Yeah, it's a similar sort of experience. So I guess I came to Del Toro through probably Hellboy first and then Pan's Labyrinth, and have gobbled up everything ever since. I didn't quite make it through his giant robots hitting dinosaurs movie. I just...
that's grim. Yeah.
Pacific Rim rules.
I cannot get through that. I'm afraid I pulled the eject button on that one. He seems to do this great thing where it's sort of one for me, one for them. And sometimes it works, you know, the one for them is either Hellboy or sometimes the one for them is Hellboy 2. And, you know, it's hit or miss. I've been a big fan of his. And yeah, eventually I got round, when the Criterion Collection came out, I did circle back and rent Cronos just to see where it all began. And it definitely is where it all began. I think he makes this... I mean, the guy is just such a... You know, he's got the soul of a poet and a philosopher. He has this wonderful comment in his making of interview where he says that your first movie articulates your universe. And it is all here. I mean, I watched Pinocchio today, and there are even things in that harken back to Cronos. So it's pretty foundational. That said, it did not make a big splash when it came out. So it debuted in 2 theatres on the 1st of April 1994. It eventually expanded to 28. The highest position it got was 23 in the box office in the US. To give you some idea of what was topping the charts back then, as you were saying, Isaac, for context, the number 1 film was Major League 2, and the number 2 film was D2, The Mighty Ducks. So it's all about the sports sequels in 1994. So yeah, and the box office was about 500,000, depending on which report you go to, on a 2 million budget. But it was Mexico's submission for Best International Feature Film at the 66th Academy Awards, but it wasn't nominated, and the winner was Belle Epoque, which of course we all remember so fondly. How about you, Dan?
Never heard of that movie. Right. Yeah, no, this is the first watch for me. I'd never seen it before. I don't know, like... it's been on my list for a while.
Yeah, it has.
I think it's been in the oubliette since the very beginning. I had like a dodgy pirated copy on a hard drive for years and years, just never watched it. And yeah, I don't know, because I'm a huge Del Toro fan. Like, I love his movies. I think the first movie I watched was probably Blade 2, which I always forget is a Del Toro movie because it's such a, you know, it's Blade. You're like, oh yeah, Del Toro did a Blade movie. And I think Mimic used to be on TV, but I was like too scared to watch it at the time. You know, I didn't watch horror movies when I was a teenager. But yeah, hugely into Pan's Labyrinth.
Yeah.
That's a nightmare, a beautiful nightmare to watch. Yeah, very hit and miss his movies, right? Crimson Peak, I watched recently. We talked about in the Minnesota. Terrible movie, just awful movie. But then, like Shape of Water, Oscar-winning movie there. Like it's.
I mean, he's been on a hot streak in recent years, right? Like you have Shape of Water. I watched Nightmare Alley.
Yeah, I haven't seen that yet. Yeah.
I think that movie is crazy.
Yeah.
He's like doing all these noir tropes, but flipping them, and like it's like weird and magic and like all this crazy crap.
Wow.
And then Pinocchio is like
so
exceptional.
So good.
Especially when you compare it to that turgid plastic garbage that Disney spewed out the same year.
No kidding.
Is that the one with Tom Hanks as Geppetto?
Yes.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt as Jiminy Cricket.
Oh, he's in that. Oh my God.
Yes.
I forgot.
Yeah, there's been a lot of Pinocchio movies recently because there's another French one that came out like the previous year or something.
Yeah,
I don't know what it is with Pinocchio. In hot demand for remakes.
Big property.
Yeah.
Well, it belongs to Del Toro now for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes. Also good to hear Ron Perlman still in his movies. So good.
And Kate Blanchett as a screaming monkey.
Yeah. I was looking at the credits,
gosh.
like Kate Blanchett and Tilda Swinton in a movie. It's always either when I watch movies. It's like, is that Kate Blanchett? Oh, no, it's Tilda Swinton. It's Kate Blanchett this time. Like, it's like they alternate between all these like fantasy roles.
Yeah.
I guess all you have to do is make it so that one of them is a monkey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
then you get off scot-free.
Yeah. Cronos was a delight to watch. It really was. Like there was so much intent as well in this movie. Very mature filmmaking decisions that you would not normally see in a first movie as well. And like just using a $2 million budget really wisely.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like a $2 million movie. It looks much more expensive.
Yeah. I loved the behind the scenes on this movie just in general, right? Like it showcases how much of a sacrifice this crazy film was, right? Like he sacrificed his house, he sacrificed his car. Like this man had like nothing by the time Cronos was over. Like to make the inside of the bug, he sold his car and bought a bunch of mechanical parts and then got underneath a table and pushed up cow bladders to make it look like there was a bug.
Wow, really? Wow.
Yeah. It's like that dude put it all on the line for this like very bizarre vampire movie. Like, should we talk about that? Like,
yeah. I mean, they never mention it's a vampire movie, and it doesn't overtly scream, this is a vampire movie. There's no, like, teeth or, like, there is sucking of blood, but it's done in a very kind of almost, like, fetishy, like, seductive way. But not in a sexy, fetishy way.
No, not at all.
There's no sexy vampires in this.
No.
Because when I first watched it, I didn't even really catch on that it was vampires. Because it's kind of verging on like zombies and sort of a Cronenberg, the Fly aspect with transformations and insects and stuff. So it's a bit of everything.
It is. There are a lot of influences in there. Thematically, it's been linked to drug addiction. It's reduced this man, this lovable grandfather figure who's central to the story. Not surprisingly, it's Guillermo del Toro. There is a young child and a grandfather. It's just... And the child is mute, so... Yeah, Shape of Water, hello. It's a regular theme, but the grandfather is reduced. I mean, there's the scene, the most famous scene is the one where he's in the bathroom and he's sort of like playing with the blood from somebody's nosebleed and it almost looks like he's scooping it up and lining it up, like a line of coke in a bathroom next to the sink. Eventually, because he's interrupted, he ends up sucking it off the floor. It's as awful and pathetic as you can get. So I think Del Toro himself said this is not a sparkly guy stopping cars. This is a grandfather sucking blood off a toilet. It's not glamorous.
I didn't get the sort of drug addiction aspect until the second time I watched it, but it really is like the contraption, the Cronos device is like it's a needle that injects this eternal life serum into him, but then he also has this craving for blood, so he's addicted to the the device and blood.
Yeah.
It's not until, huge spoilers here, his granddaughter is on the line for his next feast where he, says, no, this is wrong.
Yeah. Interesting that the device that spouts a stinger is something that David Bruckner borrowed for the new version of Hellraiser.
Oh, did he? Oh.
Yes,
okay.
there's quite some similarities with the new Hellraiser and Cronos, it has to be said.
Right. I mean, the device itself, amazing. Everything's practical effects, right, in this movie.
Yeah.
I think the world building of Cronos, so much of it relies on the props and the sets that they are using, right? It feels like its own little world. Right after he uses the device for the first time, right, he starts getting the need for a fix, and he opens up the refrigerator, and there's this the first really red object in the entire film, this disgusting looking plate of meat. Why is it in their fridge? I don't know.
It's horrific.
But it's horrific.
Who would leave that in their fridge? I mean, I'm a vegan, so this is never going to happen, but wow.
Yeah.
That is foul.
It looks disgusting, right? And I just think that scene itself is such a great example of really, really competent filmmaker doing what he does best, right? Because it's the first time you really hit red in the movie, and it's all about this man's straight up addiction, and every other time you see red going forward, it's representative of this man's struggle with whether or not he's going to try and live forever and fall into his own greed, or if he's going to do the selfless thing and release himself from this device, which is a hard choice because the right thing, right, will kill him. Which I think brings me to something else that I found insane about this movie is it is an kind of intensely Christian Catholic movie, right? I mean, they're not subtle about it.
Yeah.
The guy's name is Jesus.
Yeah.
His name's Jesus. One of the bad guys' name's Angel.
Yeah.
Guardian Angel as well.
Yeah. They're all religious names, right? Mercy is in there, Mercedes, and Dawn, I think, is the name of the daughter. She's a new dawn, and all of this stuff, right? He pulls so many visual metaphors out of these religious iconography, and the Cronos device is found in this deteriorating, broken up angel statue and stuff.
It's set at Christmas as well.
Yeah, set at Christmas, goes into the new year. Right,
Yeah.
So it's a New Year's movie. Welcome, Happy New Year.
Yeah. Jesus is resurrected after 3 days.
Yes, right. He comes back after 3 days, and then his hands, right? The device claps onto his hands like the nails they put in Jesus's hands, and it's not subtle with the visual metaphors, right? About self-sacrifice and self-interest, right?
I think it is kind of subtle in terms of not being too overtly religious.
Yeah.
There's not crosses everywhere.
Sure.
I don't know. I think it could have gone further.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I didn't.
It definitely
yeah.
could have gone further.
Yeah.
Right. I guess what I was trying to say is more it's not blink and you'll miss it.
No.
You know what
no,
I mean?
definitely not. I mean, it's not as overt as the new Pinocchio where he gets crucified at one point.
Yeah, exactly. But I just think that that's a really cool foreshadowing, just in general, right? Because there's many points in the film where you're looking at this guy and you're you question whether or not you're supposed, at least I did personally, I question whether or not I'm supposed to feel sympathy or not for this grandfather figure, because at many points his granddaughter is please don't be a vampire, please. Please leave the gold-studded scarab at the door and just be my grandpa. And the grandmother, right, I think it's kind of weird, the relationship between the lead character and his wife, but she clearly is trying to pull him away from this device and this lifestyle, and he just gets further and further into it. And I think that there is this kind of big question on whether or not he's going to just become a vampire from this point forward, or if he's going to do the right thing. And having this self-sacrifice visual language throughout the whole top of the film, I just think is kind of smart and poetic, and it's a nice touch.
Yeah. Yeah, with Jesus, I'm never quite sure whether he's sold on the idea of immortal life. Certainly not in the same way that Dieter is. I mean, Dieter is this American corporate guy seeking the Cronos device so that he can live forever. I'm not sure Jesus is particularly keen on this. I think he's just reacting to a physical need that he can't quite control himself.
Yeah.
I think he enjoys the fact that he gets younger, he shaves his moustache off, he bins the little cute bow tie that he's wearing at one point and dances with his wife, if that is his wife. I'm never really sure
Yeah.
what
I
the
think it is.
relationship is.
I think it is, yeah.
Yeah.
It's quite an age difference. Like, she doesn't look the same age as him.
Yeah.
I thought the fact that he was getting younger was quite subtle. Like, it wasn't like a Hollywood thing where he looks like 20 years younger. He just kind of makes a few adjustments to how he presents himself. And he has definitely got a lot more energy, sort of youthful energy. Like, he's much more sprightly. So it's more like a mentality change with him. But then, then he starts shedding his skin and becoming like this weird white porcelain like creature. There's a lot of body horror in this movie. I was really surprised. Like, 90s wasn't really about body horror.
No, it's very Cronenbergian. I mean, certainly you get the Videodrome reference with him thrusting a hand into his midriff at one point, and it's very much like The Fly as well, with Dieter storing bits of himself in jars. Why is he doing that? What's the point?
It's really creepy.
Yeah, so he's very, very sick, right? He's gone through lots of surgeries and whatnot to, take out organs and to stay alive. He's like barely alive, but he wants to keep living with the Cronos device. So, I mean, how does the Cronos device work? It's got a bug in it. The bug injects something in you. You live forever, but then the bug needs you as a host, or how does it all work?
Yeah, they keep it vague.
Yeah.
Like, they keep it purposefully vague, which I think is better than if they had actually just spelled it out and were like, the bug's a filtration device, or you know what I mean? Like, I just told you,
sure.
like, there is this mystical element, and part of that too is like there is clarity to what the Cronos device does and exactly how you're supposed to use it, but it's held in the hands of Dieter, who is like keeping it all for himself and like refuses to give it away, and at one point destroys the truth about the Cronos device, right?
Yeah, he eats it, doesn't he?
Yeah, he eats the pages.
He eats it, which I think is just another like really smart move for this character who kind of has all of this thrust upon him. As an audience member, you are also kind of captivated by the mystery of what's happening to this guy who doesn't want this to be happening to him.
Yeah. I think that's what I like about movies like this, where they don't show everything, or they don't explain everything. So you keep having to watch the movie over and over to kind of get it. Like, I don't think I got the religious sort of themes the first time I watched it, or the addiction theme the first time I watched it, like because it does hinge a lot on the character dynamics, which was really interesting. Like, that's what Guillermo del Toro is very good at. He makes these horror movies and fantasy movies, but it's not really about all of the creatures and magic and stuff going on. It's about the characters. I love the dynamic between the grandfather and the granddaughter.
Yeah.
It's so touching. It really reminded me of more European movies. Like, I was kind of reminded of City of Lost Children that we've done.
Yeah.
The little girl and Ron Perlman again.
Oddly enough, yeah.
Yeah. Even the scene with Ron Perlman in this movie and Aurora, the girl, like, that's a really great scene. He's like playing with gum, and then he goes and like, I have an important question, and he pulls out these nose cards that he puts to his face, like, because he wants a nose job. Yeah, really, really touching scenes in this movie. I really love the characters and how they interacted.
Yeah, and it seems like a weird character quirk, doesn't it? But eventually it pays off, because you realize that his uncle keeps breaking his nose with his cane. So that's why he wants a nose job.
And also, like, Del Toro puts all of these other kinds of vampires in his vampire movie, right? Like, they have a weird vampiric relationship too, where Perlman's character is trying to like suck the life out of his ailing uncle so that he can get all his money, and the ailing uncle is like parasiting off of his nephew so that he can obtain this device, and he's being abusive and all of this stuff. He has him in his thrall, like a vampire would. And they run this like really weird factory right, which is like this industrial vampirism, right? It kind of feels like the De La Guardia empire is like vampiring off of the rest of the world of Mexico. I just think that that's smart. It's also so insanely Del Toro to make the like human capitalists the real vampires. Like, I think that is like a classic Del Toro move that he was pulling back in 1993 with his first feature debut. Like, I cannot imagine having this kind of a complexity in my debut feature. That's a lot of layers for a debut. When you watch Christopher Nolan's The Following, or you watch even something like Reservoir Dogs, I don't know if they exist on this many levels.
There's a lot of depth in this movie, but I think Ron Perlman mentioned it, like this was a completely independent film. Like they didn't have any studio intervention or anything. They made the film they wanted to make, and with the right director like Guillermo del Toro, it ends up being a really good movie.
It's not without its sacrifices, though.
Sure.
The interesting thing about this is that it is nascent Del Toro. It is not fully formed Del Toro. The things that bother me about it the most watching it is just that there's beauty here, but it's at the expense of narrative clarity. There are a lot of things that happen, and I have no idea why they happen.
Yeah.
The connective tissue is missing. So, for example, why does Jesus crave the Cronos device again after it stung him the first time? He seems to want to use it, but there's absolutely no justification for it all. Why does Angel trash his shop? Is he trying to find the device? That's not made clear. How does Jesus know that it's him? How does he make that connection?
Yeah. My biggest gripe with all of that in general is at the very end of the film where he's having this like fight with Angel on top of the factory. Why does he give a crap? Angel has everything he wants.
Yeah, that was my biggest question. Yeah, like why doesn't he just walk away?
Yeah, I mean, Angel's uncle, again, spoilers. I mean, obviously this podcast is riddled with spoilers at this point. But like, they have this big confrontation, right? Jesus is like basically full vampire mode. His skin is rotting off of his face. It's nuts. And his daughter is there with him, and they confront De La Guardia at the factory and are like, tell me how to stop this. Tell me how to fix this or whatever. And they get in this fight, and De La Guardia ends up getting hit in the back of the head by the granddaughter. And Angel comes across his dying uncle, and he just kind of gives him a final little to the neck so that he just dies and he can get all the money. Yeah. And I guess my only rationalization is that he sees that Jesus and the granddaughter saw him kill his uncle, so he has to go and kill them, maybe. But at this point, it's a very vague justification for, like, at this point, Angel, he turns on Jesus and the daughter and, like, decides he's gonna kill them both. I don't know. It's a weird moment.
And it leads to a moment that is probably the most obvious influence, because this is full-on Highlander immortals fighting on a neon sign on top of a building. At least this time it's poignant because it's De La Guardia with a clock in the middle. So there are a lot of clocks in this movie. So at least it ties in thematically, but it's, obviously an influence there. The thing that really bugs me is that everybody seems to accept Jesus' situation as normal, particularly Aurora, who is just waiting for him when he's resurrected. She's not even surprised. She's got a towel. She's emptying out her toy box so that her grandfather can sleep in it like a makeshift vampire's coffin. It's very peculiar, and the movie ends with a beautiful shot that looks like a religious painting of Jesus finally coming to rest, having, as Del Toro puts it, expressed the thing that separates us from the animals is choice, and he has chosen this. And not to take the blood out of his granddaughter in order to carry on living. He's going to pass away. So there's this beautiful shot of him lying in state like a saint with Mercedes over the top of him. Now, surely she's been a grieving widow for the last act. She's not surprised by this. She's fine with it. This is all good. her husband's this weird marble monster all of a sudden. She's fine with that. There's a massive lack of narrative clarity. And that's not to say that that is essential in a movie like this, but when you compare it to something like Pan's Labyrinth, where you have all of these elements and the thing is narratively as tight as a drum.
Yeah.
But, it's his first movie. So I don't know. It's tricky. I don't want to be too harsh on it because it's still an impressive piece of work. But when you compare it to everything most of the things that he's done afterwards, it's not great.
Yeah.
Right. I really enjoy flawed movies, though, especially from directors that are so brilliant. So I don't know. I give those a pass. I mean, Angel fighting with Jesus is pointless, but apart from that, I don't know. It was quite refreshing having a child that just wasn't scared. The granddaughter was just so brave and just, I don't know. I feel like children will accept stuff like that, especially because her love for her grandfather was so huge. That was kind of the clincher of the movie. Their bond and their relationship was just so strong that it overcame, my grandfather's a vampire now.
Yeah. And I think that there is supposed to be implied this vague mysticism to their relationship specifically, where she just kind of understands him and where he's at all points in time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, she's like a mute savant. And it does have to be said that she is the hero throughout the whole thing. She's the one that attacks the cockroaches that come out of the statue when Jesus flinches at them. She's the one that finds the alchemist's book. When Jesus says to her, "Don't you realize we're in danger?" when they're about to go into the De La Guardia lair, and she just smiles and nods. It's this is fine. Let's just go for it. And she's the one that kills Dieter. So she's the hero of the piece, really.
Yeah.
So I guess you could give her some sort of mystical awareness of everything that's going on. It could just be that it isn't quite as narratively tight as it could be.
Which I totally agree. All of those holes are there.
Yeah.
They definitely exist, right? But a lot of the movie in general is just kind of tone setting, and is inherently unexplained, that I think I forgave it a lot easier for that. Because normally I am very much if this movie doesn't have a freaking plot, a plotty plot, then I don't care. I don't want to watch a wibbly-wobbly piece of garbage.
Yeah.
Give me something to latch on to. And I think, like Dan was saying, the characters and the performances are so good that...
You kind of disregard the flaws,
Yeah, that I disregard the flaws, right? So many aspects of this movie are intentionally under, 6 veils.
Yeah.
That, I was just kind of... it doesn't really matter why they destroyed the shop. It makes sense. They're evil. Exactly.
Yeah.
So
it's similar to the last scene in this. Yeah, it makes no sense. His wife should be
freaking out.
Yeah, she should be in the corner rocking back and forth. What the fuck? My husband's a vampire now?
Right.
I mean, at the same time, you say it's the whole thing is about tone setting. Do you not find the tone inconsistent?
I love the
I think the tone's great.
I mean, it goes from beating this guy to a bloody pulp to comedic, I've got my suit on backwards and I'm just going to keep it on for the rest of the movie.
Yeah. There are really serious characters that you're supposed to take as real dramatic characters. And then they're also nonsense. I'm the bad guy who craves plastic surgery. Or
sure.
It is a wildly shifting tone. It still feels cohesive to me.
Yeah, me too. Like I said before, it did feel very European. I find French movies are like this all the time. Delicatessen, that movie, is very grim and dark, but then very comedic at the same time. And I really enjoy that.
Yeah, but this isn't as consistent. There's a section in the middle of it where it is, around about the time that Jesus dies and is resurrected. For a moment, it feels very much like a Jeunet and Caro movie.
Sure.
But before that, it's a lot less fanciful than that in Act 1. and a lot grittier in Act 3. So I don't know. It's a little bit inconsistent. Not that it threw me out of it, but it's not what Del Toro would become. I don't dislike it. I do think it is inconsistent, though. It sort of veers wildly from one tone to another without pulling it together under an envelope that allows something like The Devil's Backbone to work so well.
Yeah, sure. I mean, one character that does kind of shift the tone quite a lot is Ron Perlman's character.
Yes.
What did you think about this American actor just in this completely Spanish language movie set in Mexico?
It's brave of him. I love the way that Ron Perlman in his interview, he talks about his life before. He divides his life into life before Del Toro and life after, and says that he changed his life. And they've been remarkably devoted to each other ever since, which is great. I always love seeing him in things. Yeah, I liked what Del Toro said in the interview about how this was his reversal of the typical Mexican in an American movie is always greedy and stupid. So his sole Americans in his Mexican movie are greedy and stupid, which I kind of like. I mean, it's amazing that Perlman, because he was an established actor. I mean, had he done Beauty and the Beast at this point?
I'm not sure.
I believe he had.
Yeah, so he was an established actor, and here he is in this weird Mexican guy's movie. He just throws himself into it. Clearly, Spanish is not a language he's particularly comfortable in.
Yeah.
But it kind of works that he doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah, it's funny to see him in yet another completely non-English speaking role, because he was in City of Lost Children, a completely French movie as well.
Yeah.
Whereas he does speak Spanish in this movie. It's not always English.
Yeah.
But it does that curious thing where like Mexican characters are speaking Spanish to him and he's just replying in English, and everyone's just understanding each other for some completely unknown reason.
Yeah. Like a spaghetti western, yeah.
But I mean, I love the story that Ron Perlman tells in the behind the scenes of how he got the role. He got some letter that was like detailing all of these roles, like his whole back catalog that he would try to hide, like the weird, was it Space Truckers or something, one really bad movie he was in. And then he flew down to Mexico to meet Guillermo del Toro, and he said, "Yeah, so what language is this in?" And he's like, it's Spanish." He's like, I don't speak Spanish. Like, it's fine, let's eat. And then they just go out for lunch. And then that night, Ron like memorizes a whole huge passage of the film in Spanish and practices. And the next day he goes to Guillermo and he says his lines in Spanish. And Guillermo's like smiling and nodding. And then Ron Perlman asks him, so how did I go? How was it? And Guillermo just replies, it's terrible. Horrible, the most horrible Spanish, unusable. And then he goes, "Let's eat." And then they just go out for lunch again. It's hilarious. It's so hilarious.
Now it's time for Random Trivia.
Okay, Dan, what wonderful golden nugget of trivia did you find rattling around in your religious statue today?
Well, Ron Perlman is in this movie. I don't think I watch enough Ron Perlman movies because I really enjoyed him in this. But did you know he is quite a prolific voice actor as well? So he's done a number of characters, voiced another number of characters in animated movies and TV shows. And some of these characters include Clayface, Killer Croc, and Bane from several 90s and 2000s Batman series.
Wow.
He's revised his character of Hellboy in animated movies. He voiced Scorpion from Mortal Kombat, Defenders of the Realm. He did the Hulk, Bruce Banner in Fantastic Four, the animated series. Optimus Primal from Transformers, Power of the Primes, 2018. The Demonic Lich in Adventure Time.
That's Ron Perlman?
That's Ron Perlman, yep. And he's also voiced Deathstroke and Slade Wilson in Justice League, The Flashback Paradox. Also Sinestro from Green Lantern, the animated series. So he's done a lot of very famous characters in animated medium.
That's crazy.
I did not know that.
It's got a good
That's
voice,
amazing.
though. I mean,
Yeah, he does.
great voice.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And that's our trivia.
Yes. I guess we could touch on the score. Again, I thought it was very European sounding with like sort of tinges of like Latin dance themes and like tango, but kind of an orchestra. Like it wasn't, I don't think it was a full orchestra, but at least like a big chamber orchestra.
Sometimes,
with lots of like woodwind in there, and
Yeah.
I think there was prepared piano at one point. What were your thoughts on the score?
I wasn't a fan. It smacked of me of somebody who didn't know how to do film scoring. Just in terms of when cues come in and what they're doing when they come in, like it's too strident, too much, wrong place. It almost felt like needle drops that have been put randomly in the wrong place in the movie sometimes.
Yeah.
Right.
I looked up the guy, and Javier Alvarez, he's apparently a very famous composer, but a classical composer. So he's very much a contemporary musical figure, but he hasn't scored another feature film since. Documentaries, yes. I'm sure he's a wonderful musician, but no.
Yeah. I enjoyed the score in this movie. I thought it was great.
I mean,
I thought it was a bit on the nose sometimes, like a little bit too comedic at times.
yeah.
For the comedic moments, but I really enjoyed it. I like the kind of the South American sort of Latin twinge to it. It set the scene. And I thought some of like more soundtrack choices, like when they had the actual sort of songs or traditional like Latin band music was really funny. Like the mortician scene, that
Yeah.
music choice was really funny. So I don't know. I thought the music was, it wasn't exceptional, but I think it worked really well.
I think I probably tend to hang more with Conrad on this one. Like, I hear exactly what you're saying about, like, it's like an awkward needle drop, you know, but without needle drop music. It serves its purpose. It does what it does. You know what I mean? But I don't come away from Cronos going, God, that score. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, sure,
I mean,
sure.
I come away from Cronos going like, wow, I really love the color grading. I love the thematic layers. I love the cool take on vampires. But I don't go away going like, man, that score just knocked my socks off. You know, like that's just not the lead.
Sure.
But one thing I did want to say before, because I'm assuming we're about to head over to the Mooblies. I think it is such a cool, innovative casting decision to center this movie around an elderly gentleman in his, like, kind of Twilight era. You don't see a lot of horror movies based around elderly people as the main characters, right?
Lynn Shay will disagree with that. But,
Really?
yeah, she seems to be like the elderly woman to be in horror movies these days. She's in like every horror movie.
As, like, the lead?
Yeah, as the lead. She's
Okay.
she's in a lot of the like all the Insidious movies as the lead. And like she was in the new Grudge remake, which is horrible.
Okay.
As one of the main characters.
Maybe I'm just out of my depth. I haven't seen any of this.
Yeah, I mean it is uncommon though.
Yeah.
And I do feel like it's more common in foreign language films to have sort of older characters. I think maybe it's more of a cultural thing. Like older people in European culture and even in like South American, Central American cultures, they're much more respected. Whereas in Western culture, we just ship our old people to old folks home and forget about them, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do think it's a foreign language, sort of more popular choice. Like,
Yeah.
I watched Cat o' Nine Tails recently, which is an Argento movie, and the main character is an old guy and his granddaughter. So, I don't know, it seems like
Yeah.
not a Hollywood choice to make
Right.
normally.
Right. Which totally tracks. I mean, the whole concept of like a teen slasher or whatever, you know what I mean? Like when I think of horror, American horror specifically.
90s.
Like,
yeah. This is the wrong character choice for the 90s for horror. You need some hot teenagers. You don't want an old man and a little girl.
yeah.
Coming to you live from the Movie Oubliette Theatre, it's the prestigious Mobley Awards.
It's the Mobley Awards. It's where we present our favorite eternal life-giving parts of the film in a number of addictively piercing categories.
Best quote.
My favorite quote in the film, I think, is also Del Toro's favorite quote in the film. They're at the New Year's Eve party, And his wife asks him, "Oh, where are you going?" Right? He sees the guy with the nosebleed, and he goes, "To get a drink." Ooh. So ominous. Love it. Great. Super good.
Yeah. Conrad.
Mine was from the wonderful Ron Perlman. I'm afraid it isn't safe for work, but it's when he finds out that the object of his uncle's obsession is the Cronos device and what it supposedly does. He laughs uproariously and says, "That fucker does nothing but piss and shit all day long, and he wants to live longer."
That's great.
Which is crude and hilarious, but it also underlines one of Del Toro's key themes in the movie, which oddly enough is picked up again in Pinocchio, which is that the Cronos device might give you time. It doesn't necessarily give you a life.
Yeah, that's interesting. My favorite quote, it's probably one of the funniest moments for me in this movie. It's when Ron Perlman, he's just relaxing in his what looks like a storage cupboard hovel where he sleeps. There's a bed, a microwave, a fridge, and some like lockers. It looks awful. Like, come on. I thought his uncle was a wealthy industrial magnate. But anyway, he's just relaxing, listening to tapes about plastic surgery or something. And his uncle radios in to get up here immediately, in which Ron Perlman exclaims, not talking into the radio receiver, he just shouts, "Fucking cocksucking son of a bitch, asshole motherfucker." that last word in Spanish. But then he calmly just replies to his uncle, "I'll be right there." And it's really good comedic sort of timing and pacing. I love it.
Yeah.
Best hair or costume?
Well, I had on there the giant clock man from the New Year's Eve party.
Oh, yes.
That's a good
He's
pick.
just such a weird. It's so odd. Like, what? Do people normally come to New Year's Eve parties dressed as clocks? Nobody else in the party is dressed like a clock.
No. Yeah.
Maybe just in Mexico?
It's like, is this a Mexican culture thing? You know, leave your comments down below.
Yeah. My favorite costume, I think it's Ron Perlman's. When he's wearing that kind of pinstripe gray, like it looks like a 1920s gangster, like full suit, but he's got like a turtleneck underneath. I mean, he looks amazing.
It's great. It's a great costume.
Most 90s moment.
For most 90s, oddly enough, you've mentioned it already, Dan, it's Perlman wearing a suit but with a turtleneck.
Is that a 90s thing? Wow. Okay, I didn't know that.
It really was, yeah. No, I looked it up. It really was. Just you can find Justin Timberlake in a turtleneck but with a jacket. It's a thing.
Right. That's funny. Yeah, okay. 90s for you, Isaac?
For my most 90s, I went with like campy cartoon villains, but in a live action movie. Like,
oh yeah,
I think there was a lot of that going around. Think about like the Batman movies and stuff like that. We were really playing fast and loose about what was a cartoon and what was not. you know?
Sure,
very true.
Yeah. My most 90s wasn't really most 90s, but maybe the last decade that you got to see this. So Aurora listening in on the same telephone line. You know how you could pick up a phone in the same house and listen in and just, be careful not to breathe too heavily.
Yeah.
Otherwise they would know.
Or laugh.
Yeah. So, get off the phone, Mum. I can hear you.
Favorite scene?
It's got to be the bathroom blood licking, right? Like, it's
right. Okay.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, it's disgusting. It's horrific. I mean, it's everything that the movie represents. I'm a big fan of the bathroom blood licking scene. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, sort of leading up to that as well. So he follows the guy with the bleeding nose into the bathroom, and he's just bled everywhere on the sink basin.
This
and
man
then he
loses like a
leaves.
3 pints of blood.
Yeah, and he leaves, and
Yeah.
Jesus is just kind of like you said, Conrad, just scooping it up like a line of Coke or whatever. But then another character walks in the bathroom, and so he has to pretend that he's not about to lick this bloody bathroom thing. And the guy just like, oh, what a mess, and he just like cleans it up with his hands. I'm not
Yeah.
touching that. I'm not touching someone else's big pool of blood. Wow.
No,
Yeah.
definitely not.
Conrad?
For me, it's the mortuary scene.
Oh, yes.
Which is, because there's the grotesque sewing the lips together, and also the mortuary attendant himself is just this great character. He just looks so scummy, and he's what I love is that he's like slapping this plaster scene on the grandfather's head, and there's some guy behind him sort of complimenting his artistry, and then when you finally see it in this open casket scene later on, it's just comically bad. It's hideous. Absolutely hideous. And Ron Perlman comes in and pinches his nose to see if he's really dead. All of that, I loved it because it just suddenly turned into as I said, as you know, a Caro type movie. It was just, I thought, oh, okay, it's the City of Lost Children all of a sudden.
Yeah.
let's just do that for 20 minutes.
Most cliche moment.
The main character at their lowest moment walks through a rainstorm at Christmas time.
Oh, yeah.
That was all the time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Alone at Christmas, is there anything worse? Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, I've alluded to it before. It is when you're searching somebody's place to find something, you completely wreck it. Like, throw everything around, break things. Like, just give away that you've done it. And second of all, make the methodical searching of a place completely impossible because you're making a mess. I mean, to me, it just pushes all my OCD buttons and just makes me really upset. Like, how are you going to methodically search a place if you're just throwing shit around? Ugh, hate it.
Yeah.
Hate it.
My cliche is very obvious. Bugs and horror. It's a horror. You gotta have cockroaches and all sorts of insects. And I mean, the device itself is an insect, so yeah, bugs and horror.
Yeah.
Best special effect.
I'm a big fan of the device itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just so... I mean, it's the central point of the movie, basically, and they really put a lot of detail into it. It feels exactly as it should. Ominous, otherworldly, mechanical, but also weirdly biological. Like, it's got a lot of energies that all feel like they work, and it's just really good. It's really cool special effect.
Yeah, I like the how the legs came out, and like it looks painful. Like it looks like he's actually getting pierced. And how it goes into the device, and you have these massive cogs like turning, and this weird bug pulsating. It's and just knowing it's all practical, it just ages really well.
For sure.
Yeah. And that Del Toro sold his car just to get that internal ligature shot.
Yeah.
And then forgot about the cow guts and left them in this studio that they'd rented, and then they came back after there were complaints and had to clear it out 'cause
Really?
it stank.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
So gross.
God.
So gross.
Favorite sound effect.
I mean, sound effect, I would also pick the device. I mean, all of those clicks and shings and metal clangs. It's just like sound design ASMR. It's amazing. I love it.
I picked something that's like the opposite of ASMR. The scene where he has this itch he just cannot scratch with the bandages, and he's biting at them, and the teeth on tight bandage noises, which is like, "Arr!" But I knew that they were doing it for a very specific reason, which was they wanted to irritate you audibly in the way that he was irritated physically. It just
the sound effects are really good.
It was very good.
My pick was like after he comes back to life after 3 days, he's been sewn up in all of this stuff by the cremation specialist. He like steps on a little piece of glass, and you realize he has to cut his mouth open because it's been sewn shut. And like the sound of him cutting his mouth stitches open so he can like talk and breathe. It's like it's like
it's awful.
It is horrific. It's a really good sound effect.
Yeah.
Most funniest moment.
So I already said mine. Mine is, Angel sitting in his cramped space, picking his feet, listening to his plastic surgery tapes and screaming his head off. So that's mine.
Yeah. Well, I mean, mine was the morgue scene. Just hilarious. Like, I loved it.
It's so funny.
Yeah, the mortician is. I think the funniest part is when he's spending all his time, with the plasticine. It looks awful, and he's just dabbing it. And there's like apprentice or whoever. It's like, oh, it looks great. It looks amazing. Like, does it? Does it look good? And then he says, oh, it's gonna be a cremation though. And then
he's like,
the
what am I doing?
What? I've been spending all this time for nothing, and he's just gonna get burnt. Oh, yeah, really good comic timing.
I agree.
It's beautiful.
I like. I had mine tied between that and the running gag of him wanting to get his nose remade.
Oh yeah, sure.
I just thought that was so clever. And it also is like thematically important too. Not a lot of like good comedy that also has like a point. You
sure.
know? So,
Yeah.
Thought that was great.
And that's our Mooblies.
Yes.
Hello, this is Mikey Newman from FilmJoy, and you're listening to Movie Oubliette.
Okay, it's final verdict time. First one of 2023. Should Guillermo del Toro's Cronos escape the oubliette and live forever with its porcelain skin and be adored by the world? Or should it be punched to death by a tuxedoed Ron Perlman, shoved off a cliff and plummet to the darkest depths of the oubliette, lost forever? Isaac, our guest for today, first episode of 2023, Cronos, did you love it?
Yeah. I mean, I really enjoy this movie. Its flaws are there, right? It's got flaws just like any movie has flaws. But the heart of this movie and the complexities of this movie just shine right through all of the bad bits for me. And when I watch it, I'm just kind of like, wow, it's incredible that this dude was out the gate casting this same vision. I find that if this movie was his like sixth movie, right, I don't know if I would have as much of an appreciation for it as I do. I think Cronos is a great little piece, and especially if you're a fan of Guillermo del Toro's works, we should set it free so that you can experience the origin point, Yeah.
I think it's fascinating to watch a director's first movies and see how it's sort of blossomed from here. And he really had a lot of intention and a lot of like sort of obvious goals in what he wanted to portray in this movie, and characters and dynamics. He's known for sort of making the monster not the bad guy as well. It's always the humans that are the bad guys. It's not the creatures, and it's really interesting watching his films. He's always pushing boundaries, and Cronos is still pushing boundaries. It's still a pretty weird movie to watch even now. And yeah, it has flaws, but I don't know, the characters. As long as you got good characters, it doesn't matter. I don't care. And guys dressed as clocks. That's all I wanted.
Yeah. Where's my Clockman spin-off film, Del Toro? I feel promised.
But yes, set it free.
Oh. Well, I'm more conflicted about it because I could see a lot of the flaws. There are a lot of inconsistencies in tone. There are a lot of narrative holes in there. There are some things that don't make an awful lot of sense. There are some obvious resource restrictions in terms of the budget and the quality that affects the quality of the movie in a lot of ways. I couldn't help but see that, as Del Toro says, he's setting up his universe, but so many elements would crop up again in future films and be better. Like, the young girl trying to make her way through a dark time surrounded by insectile fantasy creatures, and that's going to crop up again in Pan's Labyrinth. The mute character and the monster is The Shape of Water, and all of those are such better films. And it's difficult. You look at this and you think, I can see where he's going, but when you compare it to the rest of his oeuvre, a stupid word, but it's pretentious word. I don't know. It's difficult. When I compare it to the rest of Del Toro, I would throw it back in. But when I compare it to other films coming out in early 1990s, it clearly has to be saved.
Yeah.
And for anybody who is an enthusiast, it's an important piece to watch, even if it doesn't quite measure up to everything that would come after it. So I think on balance, I'd let it go. I think it's just because he's so damn good that it pales in comparison.
Yeah.
That's trouble. So, and of course, we must also bring in our mid to top tier patrons, because new this year, our patrons get to vote as well. And drum roll, their conclusion was that we should set it free as well. But it was not a clean sweep.
Ooh, okay.
It was kind of 2/3 one way, 1/3 another way. So
Okay.
Chazilla said, love Guillermo del Toro's work. First time I've seen Cronos. I'm sure it was packed full of symbolism and hidden meanings, but holy hell did it cure my insomnia. Leave it in the oubliette.
Wow.
I think it was a bit slower paced than sort of other movies. So I can understand maybe.
No, I disagree. Much respect, though. Glad you're supporting the oubliette.
Yeah. And whereas Eddie said, I'm a huge fan of Cronos. So yeah, it's not a clear-cut thing.
Yeah.
It's not a clear-cut thing at all. But yes, thanks for voting, patrons.
Yes, thank
And,
you.
If you would like to vote, then head on over to Patreon and join in.
Yes.
So I guess that means that we're letting it go.
Yeah.
Hooray!
Let me just shake it loose from this statue. Off you go.
Mine! Everything is all mine!
Well, thanks so much, Isaac, for joining us again. It's been wonderful to start the year with you as our guide to this early Del Toro work. Where can people follow you and follow your thoughts on other movies?
Thank you for having me on. As I always say, it's so great to see you guys every single time. If you want to follow me, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Isaac Last Name there. Or, you can check out my YouTube channel, also Isaac Last Name. Not the pregnancy one. Just the one that looks like a genuine man. Okay? 2 Isaac last names. What is weird, what is not. And then I have that video game Melee Mythos YouTube channel as well. I wanted to separate my thoughts on movies and my thoughts on video games a little bit. So Melee, like you're fighting somebody, and Mythos, like it's the Greek mythos. So thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to plug my garbage, y'all. I appreciate it.
It was highly entertaining garbage. Say.
Well, thank you.
And if you want to follow our garbage, our future garbage, you can, you can find us.
We shouldn't say that Isaac's responsible for our garbage.
You can find us on all socials, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram as Movie Oubliette, and you can email us directly to talk about how garbage our stuff is movie.oubliette@gmail.com.
Oh, jeez.
And if you would like to support the show, head on over to Patreon, where for $1 you get access to extended clips from our main episodes, and you can nominate and vote on films for us to cover in future. And for $5, you get to vote on whether the film stays in the oubliette or is set free, as well as getting access to our exclusive monthly minisodes and extended versions of our interviews with special guests.
Yes.
And finally, there's the $10 slot where you get to be an executive producer of the show and get access to all the behind-the-scenes making-ofs. And yes, so I should thank Chazilla, Eddie Coulter, and one Isaac Sutton for being in that category.
Who's that guy?
So thanks to our executive producers. Great to have you on board.
Yes.
Yeah.
We also have merchandise at Redbubble. All the stuff, and we have a YouTube channel as well.
We do.
Lots of cool video essays on there.
Marvelous.
Okay, Conrad, what's in store for our second episode of 2023?
Well, yes, our Patreon supporters have been voting on this too. So our very next episode will be a 1983 American-Canadian space western entitled Space Hunter: Adventures in the Forbidden Zone.
It sounds ominous.
That's an amazing title.
Doesn't it just? It stars Peter Strauss, Molly Ringwald, Ernie Hudson, and Michael Ironside.
Right.
Spoilers, he's the villain. So yes, can't wait to dip into some 80s sci-fi cheese.
Yes. I hope it's as good as Battle Beyond the Stars.
Right. Okay, well, thanks for being with us again, Isaac. Until next time.
All right. Thanks, y'all. Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
We review the films others tend to forget. Come with us and open up the movie oubliette.
Ah, Senor Gris, now I have to kill you again.